Hi, hello there everyone. Today we're going to once again be talking about the Halloween franchise. Now, with a series of sequels that followed one of the most beloved and cherished horror movies of all time, you're obviously going to stumble upon some divisive, questionable sequels. And one that's more divisive than most would be none other than Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. From what I can tell, this is generally regarded to be one of the weakest entries of the franchise. Usually, of course, you'll see it above Halloween Resurrection or Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, but it's still always there at the bottom. People have a lot of contempt for this movie, especially when they compare it to the beloved Halloween 4. Seriously, people fucking love Halloween 4. If you want to win a horror fan's heart, go over and tell them that you like Halloween 4 and just watch their heart burst open with excitement. So coming off that, Halloween 5 is really stuck in Halloween 4's shadow, especially because it continues the story of Halloween 4 so directly. And I know I've been pretty harsh about the Halloween franchise, but I have to say I'm actually kind of a defender for Halloween 5. When I was first getting into this franchise, I had no idea that Halloween 5 was the contested sequel that it was, because, well, I actually found a lot to enjoy about it. I certainly don't think it's a big down step from Halloween 4, which has a lot of problems of its own. For me, they both balance out to a pretty equal place in my heart. And Halloween 5 certainly has a lot of baggage that comes with it. Even as a person who enjoys it, I will not be ignoring or discounting the numerous issues that this movie has. But it certainly doesn't deserve the hate that it gets, and it has a lot of redeeming qualities that shine through the muck. First, let's talk about the production behind this movie. Now, while Halloween 4 took a while to develop, coming off the coattails of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, the writers had enough time to at least know where they were going with the story. Everything was cemented, everything was put in place. It was a competently put together production. While Halloween 5, however, was rushed in a year, and man, you can tell. The writers put in so many different things that they had no idea what they were doing with. There's one whole subplot, and if you know Halloween 5, you know the one I'm talking about, where the writers actually admit now that they had no idea what they were doing. They had no plans for it, they just put it in there because why not? And because of this, Halloween 5 is a dismally clumsy and uneven movie. The best characters are either disposed of or underused, and the worst characters are given the spotlight. That being said, what I like about Halloween 5 is the direction, the cinematography, and the portrayal of Michael Myers. Now, Halloween 4's director Dwight H. Little paid respect to Carpenter's vision and generally played it safe. There were a couple times where there were a couple of atmospheric sequences. There were some pretty actually exciting chase sequences. There were a couple of bright spots atmospherically throughout Halloween 4. There are some well-shot, well-lit scenes, some really well-done chase sequences, but Halloween 4 has this cheap quality. Aesthetically, it comes across as very uninspired to me, especially with the look of Michael Myers, which has to be the single worst mask in the history of this franchise, and I will not hear a word to the contrary. Don't even try defending that Data from Star Trek mask to me. I'm not having any of that. Whereas the director of Halloween 5, I can't remember his name, but I believe he's French, he brought a very distinctive vision to a pretty cookie-cutter story, and there's this whole apocalyptic glare on the movie. Something about those European camera angles and close-up shots. There's a real tangible sense of anxiety and just general uneasiness throughout this movie. And there's still respect for Carpenter's vision. You have a bunch of shots where Michael's lurking around in the background. But aesthetically, there was a new stylistic direction for this movie, which I don't think we really had up to that point. Pretty much every Halloween sequel, aside from 3, was trying to copy the original, whereas this one was actually moving forward. There are scenes that could have easily been stale or boring that are elevated quite significantly by the sense of atmosphere that the production team brought to this movie. I really like how that barn scene is lit, and while I did bash the characters of Halloween 5, there's a couple things I'd like to say. First, I do not mind that they decided to kill Rachel, because it did add to the tension. It did make Myers seem like even more of a force, because Rachel had survived the previous movie, and the audience must have surely thought that she was going to make it this time around. So when the shape does kill her in the first 15-20 minutes of the movie, that does add to the presence of the shape, and it shows that the guy's not fucking around this time. The problem is, of course, is that you substitute Rachel arguably one of the greatest final girls of all time, for Tina. Yeah, this is one of those breaking points where you can't defend Tina. She's Tina. Actually, if I can say something positively, she becomes so obnoxious, so assertively annoying, and Wendy Kaplan, I believe is the actress's name, is just bringing so much energy to this part that it actually becomes kind of amusing. I wonder how freaking far she can go to grate my ears. And actually there's a twinge of black comedy in the scene between her and Michael, who's wearing a different mask and she thinks it's her boyfriend. She keeps annoying him and flirting with him, and eventually she demands to stop for a pack of cigarettes. Now, Michael Myers isn't usually the type to give in to others' demands, especially when he's going to kill them, but this time she's so freaking annoying that he just has no choice, and that's actually a darkly funny moment for me. There's not many moments like that with Myers' character. But the character I really want to put my neck out for is Donald Pleasance's Dr. Loomis. People seem to really hate this interpretation of the character because he's so bitter, he's so far gone after decades of chasing Michael Myers. I mean, the man's just a crotchety old dick at this point. He goes so far as to use Jamie, the little girl, as bait. Now, at first, that seems like a wild deviation from the original Dr. Loomis, who, even though he was obviously very intense and very Ahab-like in his obsession with Michael, was still obviously a good person trying to do the right thing. But here, he's lost sight of that. He's so far gone. And my reaction to that is, well, yeah, that's what happens when you devote your entire life to one specific thing, especially when that one thing is a supernatural, unkillable boogeyman. So I'm glad they actually brought Dr. Loomis to this place, because it seems like a really natural progression for his character. And I just could not have more scenes of Dr. Loomis talking about how Michael had the blackest eyes and all that. No, he's done yammering and he's done talking about it. He's really going to do whatever he can to put Michael Myers to rest. And speaking of the big guy, let's talk about the absolute redeeming quality of this movie. That's Don Shanks' Michael Myers. Don Shanks brought a new element to this character that a lot of movies, especially the Rob Zombie ones, have copied since. And that's turning Michael Myers into a vicious, brutal force on screen. But Michael Myers previously had this kind of ninja-like presence to them. They were extremely deliberate killers who really took their time, kept to the shadows, and waited for the right moment. And while there is certainly that element still to Don Shanks as Michael Myers here, there's a sense of rage and intensity to the character this time around, which is, I think, a really necessary element to keep the shape from becoming a stale villain. There's such aggression in the way he moves, and even though he doesn't run, he's still propelled by this sense of purpose, this sense of rage that keeps festering inside of him. This is the first Michael Myers that ever really truly scared me out of this original series, because the man is so unrelentingly brutal. I mean, that scene where he just plows through the door and just grabs that one guy and strangles him with the ladder and just fucking drops him off. I mean, that's the kind of vicious badassery that I love to see in my slasher villains. Also, kind of an extension of my previous point, but this movie just gets so intense in the third act. When they're in the laundry chute and Michael is stabbing his way through just trying to get Jamie, if you were to ask me what was the most viscerally scary and just really pulse-pounding sequence of the original franchise, I might honestly tell you that one, because the first time I saw it, it had me on the edge of my seat, and it keeps me on the edge of my seat every other rewatch. So when you get right down to it, Halloween 5 is an extremely flawed movie, but has some real redeeming qualities as a slasher flick. It has a sense of atmosphere, tension. Michael Myers is more brutal and relentless than he's ever been, and these qualities do keep me engaged with the movie despite all of the clumsy writing. So guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say. If you're a big Halloween fan, tell me what you think about Halloween 5, where you stand on it. Like this video if you want, subscribe if you want, and stay tuned for more videos in the future.